I'm Benjamin Zappin with Five Flavors Herbs and Conceivable Proline, and we're really pleased to have Dr. Beck Hoehn joining us to talk about empowering your fertility practice. Beck's going to be sharing some case histories, some case management considerations with us, which we always need to be considerate of. Um, At the end of the presentation, she'll also share some details about her positive pregnancy project and her Make a Baby bundle courses, educational courses for consumers, which may be of benefit to you and or your patient base or your audience. I know a lot of individuals attend our classes that aren't practitioners. So Beck, please let us know a little bit about yourself and take it away. And thank you everybody for participating.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for the really warm introduction. You always make it really pleasant to hang out with, so I really appreciate it. As Ben had mentioned, I'm Dr. Beck Hoehn, and today I just wanted to go over. I have a tiny little office in Los Angeles, California, and I've been studying fertility for around 10 years now. One of the things that I found in terms of management, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, was just really creating a 3-part proprietary process by which I move people through um, a fertility outcome so that they can really manage their care almost by themselves, but with me there as a guide. So we're going to be talking about that today. And should we get started?
Yeah, you
What do you
just jump
think?
right into it.
I'm gonna jump right in.
I'm gonna
Okay.
become invisible and
Okay.
yeah,
I'm gonna share screen and get moving.
great.
Let's see. Can I see the chat? Let's see. Okay, so the chat's over here. Okay, fantastic. This is a free open-ended presentation, you guys. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, just put it in the chat. Obviously, we'll stop the slides. It's about 30 minutes of chit-chatting, and then we'll get to questions. So this first slide is just about, obviously a title slide, but I did want to talk about my involvement with Five Flavors Herbs for a hot second, just because I really, I walked into their store. I fell into their store basically on a walk with my mom in Berkeley. And the people that turned me on to the Conceivable Pro line in the store were so warm and so inviting and gave us a tour of the whole entire store. I thought to myself, wow, I really want to be affiliated with this company because not only do I have a lot of herbal and clinical support through them, I also can really interact with my community in a way that I was never really, I didn't really have before I found Five Flavors. So I'm really excited to be part of this fertility acupuncture community. And I hope that these kind of serve as a bridge for all of us to start communicating together more effectively and really start collaborating instead of competing because I don't know, that's kind of one of my battle cries these days. So anyway, we're going to get going. The key concepts today are why egg quality is important, right? We all know that this is one of the things that we're doing, but to really drive that home. And then talking about a little bit about TCM and Western treatment goals today. I want to shift gears a little bit and turn this on its head, so to speak, and talk a little bit about case management and how I went from being a very disorganized clinician to someone that has a little bit more of a process to how I manage fertility care. And how I want to have a discussion about how you guys also manage fertility care as well, so that we can maybe make this more of an ideation and engagement part of the lecture today. And then we're going to do, obviously, a case study at the end so that we can kind of talk about how that managed care worked out. So keep calm and carry uvum. Don't forget, it's all about egg quality. Like I said, why is it important? So according to the World Health Organization, every single person on this call knows this fact, but infertility affects one in six people globally. And this really means that we have our back up against fertility challenge or a wall here. This becomes this the World Health Organization has recognized infertility as a public health crisis. So we have to really rise to the occasion here as integrative health providers and really offer solutions that can support reproductive health and hopefully turn the tide on some of these numbers. Um, Captain Obvious also that culturally, globally, we're having children a lot later in life, and age is a massive factor to reproductive health. So, we know for a fact with certain studies now that egg quality is also correlated to live birth rate. And it's really crucial for achieving successful pregnancies through both natural conception and IVF support. High quality eggs also results, studies show that high quality eggs result in more viable embryos, and thereby those viable embryos are more capable of a successful implantation and long term pregnancy. And also, we show in the data that embryos with higher quality eggs exhibit significantly higher, like I said, implantation rates. And this in turn translates to better pregnancy outcomes overall. So, um, we really want to consider improving egg quality and then also overall improving ovarian health and that follicular environment as we kind of move through this discussion today. So some of this is these are just some general bullet points to kind of consider as you communicate with the patient, right? Because we can talk about TCM diagnostics and those differentials all day long on this call because we that's what we do, right? But I think that there needs to be a little bit of a basic understanding of some of the pillars of ovarian health and follicular development, and what that looks like so that you can communicate better with the patient. So, when I talk to the patient about follicular health, I'm always talking about improved blood flow and circulation and then thinking about boosting the energy function, right? Remember that it takes a massive amount of energy to f- to fertilize make an embryo, right? So we have to unpack all of that genetic material that's in the sperm head and the egg itself, and those spindle fibers need to come together, right? So that takes a massive amount of ATP. And this is something that the current data is actually showing that if we improve that mitochondrial function, which as we know that oocytes have a massive amount of mitochondria in them, right? So when we start kind of focusing on that laser focus sharp, we can really optimize egg quality overall. And then the next thing here is remember that within the oocyte is enveloped in a follicle, right? Like that little egg sac. So we really want to start working on removing inflammatory products to create a better follicular environment overall. So the first topic we talked about was improving blood flow and circulation, and we really want to consider nutrient delivery here, right? So if we have an enhanced blood flow or supply to the ovaries, we can deliver a greater supply of nutrients and oxygen necessary for the growth and the development of follicles. And optimal follicular development, whoo, say that 5 times fast, can ensure that follicles develop to their full potential and they can foster the maturation of healthier eggs. And we also want to consider hormonal functions here because efficient delivery of the hormones, such as estrogen and progesterone, are critical for all stages of follicular growth and ovulation. And the third piece here is toxin clearance, right? So reducing toxic load and reducing the accumulation of metabolic byproducts is very important. And if we have better blood flow and circulation, we can help in the removal of toxins and metabolic byproducts that could otherwise accumulate and damage cells within the ovaries, including the eggs. We always want to think about oxidative stress, and this goes for sperm health as well. But better blood flow helps reducing oxidative stress by flushing out those free radicals and protecting both the DNA and the cellular structures of the developing eggs. And then obviously we want to start thinking about maintaining cellular homeostasis. And so thinking about efficient removal of excess hormones and other cellular debris helps maintain a balanced internal environment conducive to egg maturation. And the third and final piece here is hormone regulation. And we really want to consider hormonal signaling, right? Because if we have better blood flow, we can ensure more of a consistent and effective hormonal signaling between the brain and the ovaries. And this is really crucial for the timing and the development of ovulation. And then also thinking about synchronization of the menstrual cycle and how that is really important for the timing of releasing the mature egg and the stability of the endocrine system. So, if we have a well regulated supply of blood, it helps stabilize the endocrine environment and ensures that ovaries will respond appropriately to hormonal cues. Any questions in the chat so far? Okay, awesome. This is a cool study we found, the team and I found today, which was amazing. So this particular study, I put the link. There's a reference page at the end of the slides as well, if you want to read through this yourself. But this was a cool recent study that talks about the extent of blood flow around the follicle and how important that is for creating a normal follicle and a healthy egg as well. So the second piece here is about the powerhouse, right? We already talked about that and the mitochondria and kind of really going back to that organelle level within the oocyte. And so we really want to consider optimizing mitochondrial function in ATP. I never think about this when I'm right in the clinic and in the throes of it. I'm just like, okay, I need to make a baby right now. Okay, how do I make a baby? And I don't think about these like very basic things that seem very obvious. So I just kind of wanted to bring them up again. Um, and this was one that came up is like, right, you need a massive amount of energy to create an embryo, right? Um, and so again, it seems so obvious when you say it out loud, but when you're when you're in it and trying to describe it, maybe you didn't think about it. So remember the mitochondria are again the powerhouses of a cell, and they're responsible for ATP. And this is the primary energy currency of the cell. And so in eggs, this energy is really vital for maturation, fertilization, and the early stages of embryonic development. So we're always considering energy supply here overall because we need that for all the critical processes during oocyte maturation and that early embryo development, like I said, and also considering cellular integrity, right? So, efficient mitochondrial function helps maintain cellular health. It reduces oxidative stress, and that oxidative stress can really damage the DNA and cellular structures of the egg. And we're going to see that that's very important and a key player, particularly when we're thinking about somebody of advanced maternal age. And this kind of piggybacks on what I just said is the longevity of the cells because we really need the optimized, well-functioning mitochondria to contribute to the longevity and the viability of eggs, which is particularly important as women age. So, mitochondrial function is vital for egg quality and the oocytes and the likelihood of successful live birth rates. Just one second here. I'm just going to mute myself for a second. Sorry about that. Um, so anyway, we're talking about the role of mitochondria in oocyte maturation here. And this study actually talked again, pontificated my previous slide about oocytes and how they contain a massive amount of mitochondria. And these mitochondria is very like vital for the quality of the oocytes and in turn successful live birth rates. So this was a very cool study. And within this study, they talked a lot about antioxidant activity and how that is showing promising results for enhancing egg quality overall. Kind of something we already knew from our study of obviously the famous book, It Starts with an Egg, but really nice to see it in current RCTs as well. So this was a cool study on that. And obviously the end result here, when we really start looking at the dynamic function of mitochondria, then we can see how it's really correlated to live birth rates overall. So this next piece is the final piece in our treatment goals and kind of just trying to outline that for the patient. And it's about the architecture of the follicular environment itself, right? Because we know that that fluid is essential for the development and the maturation of that oocyte. And we want to decrease those pro-inflammatory cytokines that can be prevalent within the follicular sac, basically. And so that enhanced circulation can remove those pro-inflammatory cytokines more efficiently and reduce inflammation within the ovarian environment. And then obviously, if we have all of those inflammatory cytokines away from the oocyte, we can minimize that inflammation. We have the risk of damage to the developing follicles is considerably lowered, and it can promote the health and the viability of the eggs. We're going to move on to some, oh, down. There's a down. Somebody didn't like something up. Oh, great. Love it. Um, okay, so down and up thumbs. We're going to work on some TCM differential diagnoses for ovarian deficiency. I'm not going to get into a lot of the nuances of this because we already speak this language together as a community. And I want to kind of get to more of the case management so that we can have more of an open-ended discussion about this. But here's some differentials to work on that would be part of the assessment piece with a new patient coming into your office, right? So you would really want to consider some of these treatment strategies and approaches. When you kind of looked at the formula, maybe during the assessment process, you looked at a formula that your patient was on prior to coming to your office, and maybe you want to stick with that diagnosis, or you want to create a different differential for yourself. And that's the power of TCM and herbs, right? Is that you can make your own decisions. Um, so the first piece is kidney yin deficiency is very prevalent, obviously, in ovarian health. And with that treatment principle, we would nourish kidney yin and clear deficient heat. And Captain Obvious here as well as the support essence. So we would really want to start incorporating foods that supported that essence. Kidney yang deficiency on the other side of the coin. And that treatment principle would be to warm and tonify kidney yang and strengthen the fire of the gate of life. So, and the other part of this goes hand in hand would be to enhance the chi with foods like roasted barley and sweet rice to boost energy levels. Liver chi stagnation. This is like my backyard, being in LA. We see this a lot, particularly in a sawtooth profile on a BBT chart, really kind of all over and erratic. And the treatment principle here would be to smooth the liver chi. So we can use things like blue plurium or chai hu to alleviate stress and ensure the smooth flow of liver chi, and then increase circulation by lovely points like liver 3, liver 14, and adjust the diet to avoid alcohol and spicy foods, and then incorporate more greens, green leafy vegetables. Blood stasis, we would obviously move blood and resolve the stasis here. So peach kernel, safflower can be very helpful in enhancing blood circulation. And then in terms of spleen tissue, we would strengthen the spleen and then raise the chi and support all of those things with some custom tailored exercise. I really like to start working on the movement piece in the early part of the assessment stage of my management, just because just to make that habit happen for them and so that they get a win right away clinically. And then when we talk about phlegm dampness, think about resolving phlegm and drying the damp. And then working on boosting the metabolism. Sometimes green tea can be very effective there for that. And then adjusting the diet and reducing things like sweet and fatty foods can really exacerbate that dampness. Okay. So one of the things I saw in the first, I would say, I say the first 9 years, um, of being in practice was I felt like I have to be honest, I felt like I was really all over the place in terms of how to manage care. And I went to my friend's practice in Palm Springs and I saw how organized he was in terms of patient management. And I decided that I had to start employing something that was easily executable and that um, it was a system that my patients could see, right? One thing in terms of fertility is that all of you guys know it's a really long road, right? And I think that it creates trust in management when you have the milestone, you know where that patient is going to have a challenge or a stuck point, and you're there, right there, ready for them with the right thing to kind of move them through and guide them over that bridge, right? So here I have this is more, I'll just explain this model to you first before I get into my notes, but this is a 3-step proprietary process, right? So on the inner part, we have these 3 circles and they all conjoin. And there's an assessment part, and then there's 3 of these outer foils. And these outer foils are more like accelerators. And these are kind of categories of care that you can do that all are coupled with assessment, for example. And this would be the first piece of what you would do, right? And then we would move to the second part of the model, which would be 3 kind of outer foils or components that would get them from each of that. So they would graduate using each one of these accelerators into the second part of their care, which would be kind of more of the teach part, right? And so this part is after the assessment part, we're teaching them the relevance of what they're doing, so that then they can move on to their graduation and get and implement. So, and this is more of like the execution piece of the care, so that at the end in the center, we're making a baby or a better egg, right? So, I again have talked a little bit about why I think it's important, but I'll just say it again is that I think it creates trust. It gives the patient control. Everyone knows what is going to happen at every step and every treatment. So, for example, in between my office coordinator and myself is like, "Oh, okay, when we arrive that appointment, okay, cool. Sally is at treatment 3. Okay, cool. She's going to get XYZ handouts because this is where we are in care, right? So it just becomes a really the patient flow gets better and is more successful when everybody is involved and everyone knows what's happening, right? Um, Again, this creates patient and progress just milestones because at every step of the way, they're really going to want to know, is this working? Right? What do I see? How do I? And so by you knowing those milestones and anticipating those milestones, you're going to be able to show the way for them. And this other piece is it really cultivates patient engagement. People get really excited and involved and sometimes even passionate around the model, believe it or not. Um, we've got like half of our patient base right now is really like rule followers. And they sign up for all the things, they do all the things. And guess what? those are the people that get pregnant because they they get results. I mean, they're sharks. I don't know how they do it. Um, so just remember when we talk about going back to this model again, in this assessment phase, we want to start really evaluating things like all of the things, the whole systems medicine approach to ovarian health, right? So we want to think about lifestyle, nutrition, stress levels, environmental exposures, how the person thinks, eats, and moves, and even manages themselves spiritually throughout their day. These are all penultimate to ovarian health, right? For example, when stress level is upregulated, excess cortisol can create inflammation. We don't want any inflammation when we're trying to make a baby, right? We only want it when we're running from the lion. And then in terms of environmental exposures, this can also be something that even when the patient is turning the lens inward on their own environment and their own home environment, this can be really powerful for them and really transformative. And you don't really need to do once they're held accountable, they start having more awareness in the assessment phase. You don't really need to do a lot of teaching. They figure it out by themselves, in my opinion. Um, and so then kind of really starting to take stock of a series of assessments. So we have handouts on a stress survey. We also have a pantry raid that people do as part of their care. And then just a really nice, we also have really nice checklists for the refrigerator so that it's almost like a chore chart, right? It's like, okay, cool. I did this today. I did this today. And then they just bring that piece of paper in. For those of you on this call that know me, you know I'm super not paper related, but in this case, it really made sense to just do paper because it created more awareness and engagement. And then one thing that comes up for me, I don't know if it comes up for you guys a lot, but tracking assessment and cervical mucus became like huge in this part. And so I usually spend around 3 to 4 weeks just on assessment with somebody. And I tell them that during their consult call as well. Um, so generally, people are using an app and it's wildly inaccurate. And as a matter of fact, a recent study evaluated about 200 phone apps and found that those were correct in predicting your fertile window only 20% of the time. So we're really not giving people the clear picture of what their fertile window should look like. And there's not a lot of awareness around cervical fluid at all. So getting somebody set up with the right piece of femtech can be very helpful, or pen and paper, BBT chart. Either way. You can go Fred Flintstone or Jetsons here. I use the UVA kit, shameless plug here, but it's just because I'm on their medical advisory board and I really like how the clinical dashboard is set up. But you can use things like Anito is wonderful, Mira is great. We have a patient on Prove right now, so I'm really excited to see what those results look like. Um, and then also, so making sure that they can properly track their cycle and then taking a look at their current formulas and supplementation. I'm a brand person, so I really need to like I take a look at what those dosages are and that overhaul. And then I just have a spreadsheet that I plug those into with all the RDAs so that I like make sure that they're getting what they need. Um, and then current formulas. So this is another thing, just clinically to suss out for yourself because a lot of patients come in with formulas from previous acupuncturists, and that might have been something that they really needed at the time. But as they start evolving and becoming more trusting of your care, you might want to kind of take over that helm a little bit. And then that's something that you can kind of broach, obviously, at this phase. And then this would be a great time for a differential for a TCM diagnosis. The conceivable proline makes this very easy. It's like putting a robot together. I love it. So basically and they have lovely training guides for this, but basically just come up with one of those core foundational TCM diagnoses. And then maybe you have something like a secondary diagnosis that you want to address in the formula. Or maybe you want to phase formulas. You think that somebody has this diagnosis in the follicular phase, and relative to that, you want to complement that to the yang formula that you use in the luteal phase. Whatever blows your skirt up at that point. So again, some of the trackers that we use, for example, is I use MyFitnessPal, and apps like Think Dirty can be really great. And then, like I said, I already mentioned the Femtech. And the second piece of this is kind of really moving them into that second phase so that they can start getting used to why they're doing the things, right? I mean, I know all of you guys as fertility providers know, like, they will stand outside in the rain naked with feathers if you tell them to. But I would prefer that patients actually know why we're doing things. And I think it creates a lot more context. So I spend a lot of time on Teach, actually. It's my favorite spot. Because when they start getting curious around their ovarian health and how these tiny little changes are making an impactful difference, you are going to get an engaged, compliant patient. And so spending time to keep the person engaged and involved in their care, and trying to make it more about what they're doing instead of what you're telling them to do, is really, really significant. I think I have a question here. Hang on. Oh, hi, YK Scarlett. Hi, would you guide a patient to track BBT and cervical fluid when they are work a changing schedule? Sometimes works nights, and following weekends works days. Um, yeah, so thank you for the question. I don't do BBT charting. It's a little inaccurate for that context. And that's why something like a piece of femtech that uses urine metabolites can be a lot more effective. Just remember that a lot of the products now, the femtech products, are geared towards that sensitivity of the tissue paper can be different. So we've found from the data sampling at UVA that half of the binding protein for LH is picked up in the morning collection, and half of it is picked up in the afternoon for some patients. So it's really interesting because that's relatively new data to the reproductive playing field. Um, and so that can really change somebody's results, right? So BBT charting is great if you're not a shift worker, right? Or if you're traveling a lot, or factors that can affect BBT charting can be something like mouth breathing, snoring. Um, and so it wouldn't probably serve the person as well as something like a piece of femtech. And also, one of the other cool things about BBT, the Femtech now, is that a lot of the dashboards have a place where you can also track BBT. So it's kind of cool. They can see that overlay. Um, so it just depends how teched up or teched down you want to do. The other follow-up question here is to this one, this is a cool question to jump off of, is this particular context that YK Scarlett is talking about is it's really hard to track cervical fluid. And a lot of these people miss it. So you have to find another way to teach them about when to be sexually active. And so yeah, so that is something that's a really good question. Understood. She's very tech that savvy. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. And I would say if she is tech savvy, she might be one of those geeks that would sometimes people like to do Anito and Uva, right? So the great thing about, I won't go into, I could talk about this a lot, and Femtech's my favorite place to live. But one of the cool things about some of the products now is that we're actually seeing like Uva can now track estrogens deep into the early follicular phase. And this is really intriguing because now we're looking at more latitude in terms of hormonal health and tracking, because people are starting to understand that wow, cool, there's things that happen on the bookends of people's cycles, right? And we want to capture that diagnostically. So yeah, so great question. Thanks, YK Scarlett. Good on ya. Okay. So, getting back to the model here, and then implement. So I always think about the human part of what I'm doing, right? Because I really try to standardize care, so that everyone is on board with the same program. Um, there's got to be some wiggle room, right? So really considering some things that I've learned from my friends over the years. Really, what is reasonable for this patient? What type of executor is this patient? I think that this was interesting. I did a lot of work in a business program, and we talked about what type of executor your team is. And I always think about my patients as we're a team together. And so it's like, how do we relate to each other? How can I how can I help this person execute and be successful? And so right? So if you have somebody that is a trial lawyer, and not really Debbie Decorator home lady, um, then we have to find a meal plan service for them. Or we need to have a professional come in and remove toxic load from their house. Or they should work with a health coach or um, some other kind of piece to the puzzle, right? Um, so really thinking about, and this is something always in the back of my mind, how are you going to get them from fear to fertile? And I think that that is a really powerful um, piece of what my mission statement is all about when I think about this three-part proprietary process of ovarian health. Um, so uh, this was one of the things that I did to respond to egg quality in my office. So we have two courses that the team and I built, and one of them is called Chi Quality Eggs, and one of them is called the Sperm Success Strategy. And right now they were so popular, actually, we had so many opt-ins in office that we made a Make a Baby bundle, and that is launching right now during National Infertility Awareness Week. And so these are kind of two comprehensive mini courses that you can navigate by yourself. We have support for these through a Facebook group called the Bun in the Oven Buzz. And we do a lot of handouts and a lot of engagement in that group. So for questions, we don't get a lot of DMs on the social platforms for these two classes, but um, this became a really popular way to navigate ovarian health, and it's very self-guided. So you can listen to this product in your car. There's no testing on it at all. But it really kind of takes you through understanding fertility and egg quality, an introduction to TCM. So this is a great primer, and then the connection between she and egg quality, and some lifestyle and nutritional strategies to enhance fertility and mind body practices, and how you can create and build your own treatment plan. And then the last module is a doozy. It's about environmental exposure and egg quality, which is also something really near and dear to my heart. So we talk about that a lot in office as well. So I wanted to, unless anybody had questions, it looks like nobody had questions. Okay. I'm going to go into this case study, and then we'll wrap up and have some discussion time. Um, so this is Shannon, and she's 39, and her chief complaint was unexplained infertility. And when I first saw this patient, she had gone through 4 years of IVF through COVID. So tough road. She had one viable embryo. It was stored very far away. Her IVF office was very far from our home. And when she came to me, she was really tired, frustrated, and frankly, just really didn't think it was going to happen for her. In terms of history of present illness, her and her husband had been trying to conceive for about 5 years. They were traveling to an IVF clinic that entailed several hours each week. And they both had very tremendously stressful jobs, and they were both corporate lawyers, and they both rarely saw each other, and they worked about 80 hours a week each. Um, and Shannon had gone through massive amounts of stim, so multiple rounds of retrievals and several different retrieval protocols at the time. And then supplement wise, on and off, she was taking NAC, vitamin DAC, a prenatal, CoQ10, DHEA, on and off. And then she was working with another acupuncturist, and they did the CamWow um, formulas. But it was an interesting commentary. She didn't know what they were doing, and she just felt like she was just drinking out of this plastic container, um, just because somebody told her to. So, just really having some guidance and education around that formula perspective is really, I think, important as well. Family history wise, she had no significant genetic diseases among her immediate family members. And social history wise, she did not smoke or drink alcohol. And her eating patterns were really intriguing, actually. She tended to skip a lot of meals and she ate a lot of fast food in her car. And her husband had this very strange nervous tic. He was a very picky eater, and would only eat one hamburger with cheese on it, like, a day. That was it. So he was, like, very, controlling in terms of food. It was really interesting, actually. Um, Work was a very toxic environment, as you all must imagine. And then in terms of review of systems, Shannon struggled with fatigue, sleep, and the emotional burden of the regret that she didn't try to have a baby sooner. That came up a lot. All of her basic cycle day 3 labs were workup was normal, and we did a full thyroid panel on her as well, and that everything looked inconclusive at the time. We didn't retest. Um, so one of the things that, going back to this model, is we really started working on an assessment, and I asked her to actually just start with a tracking journal, and she did some meal tracking. I sent her home with our stress assessment from the assessment tile. And I asked her for a list of her household and beauty products. And I also asked her to track sleep and wake cycles and hours spent in the car. And we actually saw that she was using a lot of makeup that was not on environmental working group kind of, or like beauty counter, however you wanna track it, but it had a lot of, products, and there was a lot of xenoestrogens in the products, which was really interesting, and then, they were also using a phthalate, laundry detergent, which, as you guys know, phthalates can, um, dysregulate testosterone production and, lower sperm production as well. So, I also asked her to track, okay, and so she had spent so much time on IVF that she had no idea how her natural cycle performed. And so we made a plan together to really work on that. And in response to Scarlett's question, she actually used this was before Femtech technology in my office. So um, she just used a BBT chart. We have something called the Get Pregnant Guide. It's a lovely freebie that people can navigate and learn how to BBT chart. And so she made a plan and started using that Get Pregnant Guide, and it was very helpful. Um, we also really, and this is more of the teach part, a couple of sessions into her care, she started bringing her husband in, and it was really clinically like eye opening for me. Um, just because, it's really interesting to see how couples relate to the issue of fertility challenges, and if I'm perfectly honest, like, I don't see that a lot in my office. I don't see a lot of couples kind of coming at it at once, and I don't see the male partner as engaged as I would love that to happen more. Um, I'm not sure if there's something energetically at my office, but I usually generally just work on women, Um, and so it was really nice to see this partner, and we have become, this was a very, they came in with their baby to my office after they conceived, and it was really nice to see them together in such a great, well-adjusted way. But anyway, so we had a talk one day about the husband, and the husband actually revealed through this process that he felt really shut off and helpless. And he didn't really know how to support her because she kept shutting him down. And then Shannon explained that she was so lost in her fertility journey that she could not communicate. And this cultivated even more tension in the home environment. So the home environment for her was no longer a safe, relaxing place where she felt like she could welcome a baby. And it was more stressful to be at home as well. So once we started working on these things together, they actually just, what was this, about a year ago. So their baby was born about a year ago, and it was really lovely. They actually conceived after about 4 cycles, just working weekly with me, and then working on, again, this managed care. This was a great example of the patient really guided the entire system. She took charge hard, and I gave her the outer foils of my treatment management program, and she really just kind of looked through each of the classes that I do. I do this in another class called the Positive Pregnancy Project, and these outer foils are each about 3 to 4 modules, and this is a 10-week program that I do online. And she actually really started taking each one of these apart and really tackling them week by week. And she actually knew how to manage her care better than anyone did. And this was just a really wonderful transformation for me personally, because I really, my whole thing about clinic is to try to empower and educate people so that we make long lasting changes with this model so that they can use this again and again and again in terms of their family building. So she had a lovely baby, as I talked about. And yeah, so that was just one example. And I'm actually at wrap up time. Here's these really amazing studies I read for this talk. And then just one thing to talk about here before we get to questions is please stay in touch. I really am honored that I got to be a part of this community. I really appreciate Five Flavors. And one thing that's happened this year, which I love so much, is that in the Los Angeles community, I'm really trying to outreach and connect with other fertility acupuncturists, and so that we can kind of be more of a community together. Northern California does this so well, and I feel like Southern California needs to kind of get on board in terms of our fertility acupuncture community. So this was a great opportunity. So you can follow me on Instagram. Um, the QR code goes to my LinkedIn bio, so you can take a look at some of my courses that I'm building. And then in a couple of months, this is pretty exciting, but we're going to launch the Positive Pregnancy Project again, which is that 10-week comprehensive course. And there'll be an affiliate program along with it. So you will receive a 30% commission on any person that you bring to the Positive Pregnancy Project. So I highly recommend that you DM me. And I would love to get to know you a little better. And it is time for the lady in the red dress and questions. Anybody have any questions? You can actually, I'm going to stop share. This is such a small group. We can just you can just raise your hand if you feel like it, or put something in the chat. Oh, raised hand. Okay. Go ahead, Anne. You can just unmute and go. Do I have to maybe just put, and you can just put your question in the chat. Let's see, participants. let's see, maybe, and did you want to just type in the chat? Host and panels. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for raising your hand. Anyone else? Let's see what's going on here. Question and answer. Okay. Oh, cool. Oh, there you are. Hi, Anne. What was your patient's AMH in the case study? Oh, it was normal and within range, interestingly enough. Thank you for asking. I did mention that the fertility workup was inconclusive. Everything was within range. Um, Dr. Bastian, hello. Could you give an example or two of what you mean by internal toxins and how they affect egg development? Yeah, great question. So, actually, there's a great book on this, and there's actually an awesome class. Dr. Frank Pizzorno at Bastyr does a really amazing class. It's on healthy seminars, and we can talk about things like very specifically, there's certain plastics like bisphenol A can really degrade cellular integrity when we're talking about the developing oocyte. And we see this a lot with canned goods. They still use bisphenol A in canned goods. So examples could be sardines, and also acidic foods like tomatoes can leach the bisphenol into the food with a little bit more alacrity. So those acidic foods are more damaging in terms of bisphenol. Did that answer your question, Dr. Bastian? Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the recording. Um, So I've really had a great time talking to you guys and with you guys on this adventure today. Just keep in mind, I'm really excited because I am doing another one in a couple of weeks on sperm health. And um, in that, we're developing that talk right now. And there's a lot of questions around getting your partner on board and motivational interviewing. And talking about how you guys can come, how couples can come together with this line of questioning, and really get their needs met in terms of fertility challenges. So that came up a lot. While I was building the sperm success strategy. And actually that was a request from my patients to like have a survey. And so there are a lot of journaling exercises that you can take home with you on that next talk that we're doing. So I'm very excited about that. Did I miss anybody here in the oh, okay, there's a ton. I should scroll down. It's very helpful. Sorry. This was great. Systems is a huge beast. Can you put up your LI profile again? Oh, thanks, Jeannie. You're the best. Let's see. Sorry about that, Bo. Okay. All right. Yes. And Jeannie, I look forward to being your Instagram friend. So that should be very exciting. Okay, YK Scarlett's back again. Like you, typically I don't see male partners. Any guidance on how to have the male partners actively participate more? Oh, so good. Okay. Thank you. This is a good question. So I just got I was at a fertility panel a couple of weeks ago, and this exact question came up. And my friend is a functional medicine dietitian, and she actually said, yeah, well, listen, for male factors 43% of cases, we need to start being a little bit more structured in terms of how we onboard patients, right? So um and this just meant like, okay, what does that look like in that initial assessment? And how do we start dialoguing as clinicians around male factor and how to bring that person into the fold, right? So, YK Scholar, like a couple of things that I've tried. So, I built a free sperm class for male partners. Um, we had about a 50% success rate with that. And then I also offered free half hour consults with male partners. And I would say 95% of the time, I would get on a telehealth call to this. So, so I was like, okay, cool. I could be learning French during this time, but I'm here with this person that doesn't care. So I really would love to hear other people's thoughts on this. I think that I struggle massively with this, and I talk about this with my other two friends a lot in acupuncture. Um, but I don't know if it needs to be a cost incentive. One thing that we did do, which was very helpful, was we had a patient that was trying to conceive for 2 years, and it was just time to go to an IVF framework, like a year ago, and I just could not get them to move the needle on it. And I did a cost analysis of how much it would cost to do IVF, and then a cost analysis of what it was going to look like if they got pregnant naturally through acupuncture and herbs and both got on board. And that really opened their eyes. So I think it's just trying to find those pinch points for men and understand those pinch points and really starting to squeeze those lemons, so to speak. I hope that helps a little bit. The short answer is I have not been successful, and I would love to continue dialoguing with you about that. Um, Anybody else? Great group tonight. So nice. Thank you. Okay. Well, I will stop the recording. And like I said, just stay tuned on the Five Flavors channel. We're going to be doing a super fun event on sperm health. I'm really excited to be a part of this. And also watch the other providers. They're amazing, amazing, amazing providers on this series. So I hope we all get to connect in real life someday. So I will stop